They were trying to prosecute on the thinnest of evidence, of the most flimsiest of things, and that's why they keep getting kicked out. So in my last video, I told you why I think Kilmar Abrego Garcia will not be sent to Uganda, and I teased up why Maryland, the state, is important to his case. And I am going to thread the needle to Maryland just generally. If you're keeping up with this stuff, you know that today a federal district court judge tossed out the Trump administration's lawsuit against all the federal district court judges in Maryland because they refused to help them with their mass deportation, denial of people's due process rights under the United States Constitution. And why I call this administration the whack-a-mole administrations, because with their attacks on the judges in Maryland, the governor of Maryland, the governor of Colorado, the governor of Illinois, mayors in all these blue states, the mayor of DC, New York, they're constantly told by district court judges they can't do this. But they're whack-a-mole because they come back. And Kilmar is not the first migrant for them to rearrest and try to deport forcibly, illegally, unlawfully, deny them due process over and over and over again. It's because I cracked the code a little while ago. They're not interested in justice. They're not interested in winning necessarily. I don't think so. I think they just want the headlines. That's why they do it over and over and over again. Because the day after the headline you saw that said Illinois, a judge in Illinois threw out their case trying to sue the state of Illinois for being a sanctuary city, they filed the same lawsuit against New York. So it was unconstitutional and lawful in Illinois. It's the same constitution. It's the same laws. It's going to be unlawful again. But they don't care. They want the headlines. They want to be cruel. They're feeding the ravenous, just ferocious MAGA base. They just want to feed them headlines so they can say we're doing our jobs. And if we get stopped from doing our jobs, blame the courts, knowing very well they don't have any basis for it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to thread the needle for you on these cases, and I'm going to talk fast. I might talk slow, but if you're watching this, whatever platform you're watching this on, you're going to see the cog where you can speed it up. I think on TikTok, you push down on it and speed me up if I'm talking too slow for you, or it's going on too long, or you can slow it down if I'm talking too fast. And I think that's my only housekeeping. Going to be just a teaser here, 5 minutes on whatever platform you're watching this on other than YouTube, because different reasons. I need to pay the bills, and YouTube is the best format for paying the bills. If you want to support me and want me to be longer on your platform, you can get my I Digress mug, something I say often in my videos, or I Digress cap. I'll also have Operation 2/3 merch. Operation 2/3, my one-woman campaign. Each one teach one. If everyone teaches people about what's going on and empower them to vote, we can get a slither of the 90 million people that sat out. We can get 2/3 of Congress. With 2/3 of Congress, we get rid of Donald Trump. We can get rid of the entire cabinet. We can get common sense gun control. We can get immigration reform. We can do a lot of stuff to start the healing, to start cleaning this up. We can get the Nuremberg trials. It's a lot. They broke a lot of shit. So Operation 2/3, you can get my merch there. I'm going to do each one, teach one, because I'm seeing that's picking up people saying that. Anyway, enough about me. So I'm going to thread the needle. So stay tuned if you're interested in that. Okay, let's talk about why Maryland was important. Why it was important for Kilmar Abrego's lawyers to get him from Tennessee, where he was facing bogus, trumped up trafficking, smuggling charges, which he's going to beat, to Maryland. Because of this, the chief judge of Maryland, George Russell III, who's the brother, and he was the named plaintiff, the first one in the Trump administration's stupid lawsuit, which is so really, really dumb. I think they knew they were going to lose. There's no way there's any lawyers on that staff thought that the executive would seriously be able to sue district court judges, but it made for a good headline, like I said. He saw, and in May, I think, that the Trump administration was denying due process rights. But the main way they were able to deny people's due process rights, that you're guaranteed, even if you are a visitor here, if you're undocumented, whatever it is, once you're on our soil, we say Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment rights apply. We will not search you unlawfully without giving you proper due process. We will not take your life, liberty, or property. Liberty is like removing you from the country unless we give you an opportunity to defend yourself, get yourself a lawyer perhaps, and answer and present evidence to refute whatever the government has. That's due process. They saw that they were using speed as a mechanism for denying due process, probably putting papers and forcing people to sign things not in their native language. Everything they were doing was in order to purposefully deny these people due process. So the chief judge said, you know what, the state of Maryland, if you get somebody in the state of Maryland, in our jurisdiction, they get 72 hours to go get themselves a lawyer and defend themselves. No more doing the stuff that they did. That's how they got those folks in CCOT. Donald Trump issued executive order March 14th on Friday. By March 15th, Saturday, he had sent all those people down there. And we all know that there are lots of people that were there. An example, let me give you an example. There's this guy named Adrian Gil Rojas. Look it up. He had temporary protective status. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, what that means to have a temporary protective status. To be in the United States, it meant he was here legally. And for some reason, he found his way on a bus to join those other 230-something men that was sent to CCOT. Fortunately for him, the bus that was taking him to the airport broke down. That was just enough time for his wife or his sister or someone to call a lawyer, and the lawyer was able to get an emergency hearing in the court, and they were able to tell the Trump administration, no, I have a TPS. I am not a gang member. Here's my evidence to show that I'm not a gang member, in which he won. Now, here's the thing when I say that they forum shop, they take people from New York. They took Marisa Ozturk from, I think she was in Connecticut and Massachusetts, took her down to Louisiana. Mahmoud Khalil, they take him down to the detention center in Louisiana. This kid was in Texas. New York, Adrian Gil Rojas. They take him down to Texas, and it got stopped. And there was an order. The order says to release him, coordinate the release. He said, you know what? You don't need to fly me back to New York. I got it. I'm gone. So he left, and he was off. And that is similar to what happened with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And here's a little bit of background about him if you don't know anything about him. So in 2017, he came to the United States escaping gang violence and gang members trying to recruit him. His parents sent him to America. He came initially illegally, unlawfully. But here's the thing about the United States. United States offers asylum to people who want to live here, who are fearing persecution. How do you claim asylum? It's hard when you are scared for your life and fleeing to have to stay in your country and claim. A lot of times people are here for whatever reason and they will make their claim for asylum. Some folks cross the border because they have to, so they enter legally. But the minute they present themselves to an immigration custom borders agent and they're giving an A number and they're given a date, sometimes people are given work permits and say go and come back, they are now technically documented. They are now in the system. They may have came in illegal, but the minute they say we want asylum, they're now an applicant and they're here based on their application. So when you hear MAGA in the wild or Kristi Noem or Pam Bondi going off and people call them the illegals, say no, Donald Trump was not deporting the illegals. He was deporting people here who had status, and that's how he's able to get them, because they were in the system. And that's another code I cracked. A lot of the cases that I've been following and monitoring them, these people were part of this catch and release little sort of thing. I don't know if it started in the Obama presidency, but one of the reasons why we have a lot of folks here was people will cross the border and they will give them a number. A lot of folks will slink into the night and never come back. Some people, like the folks that they caught and sent to CCOT, actually did the right thing and turned themselves in and came every single time like they were supposed to. Judge Gia Cobb recently in another case said essentially the Trump administration is pulling the rug underneath people who were following the process. You said come back. They came back, and then you took them to a torture prison to be tortured and brutalized and starved and just treated inhumanely for 100 days. And so while I have you, let's go through the various different ways that people can be in the United States legally. First is the permanent ways. You were born here, and so you have citizenship by birth, or you are the child of two U.S. citizen parents or one U.S. citizen parent, no matter whether it's here or abroad, and you get it that way. You can be here permanently. You have this thing called green cards, which are permanent residents. And you also have people who are part of our humanitarian process, where, again, like I say, if you are escaping persecution based on your religion, based on your sexuality, based on you were a informant for a big drug case, you were the translator for the Taliban on behalf of the United States government, and you seek asylum, we will say, if you go back, you're going to be tortured. We let you stay here permanent. That's asylum. So that's the permanent. Temporary people can come if you're coming to visit, or you're coming to go to school, or you're coming for a business trip, or you're coming as an entertainer to perform, or you're coming to work, H-1B visa, or you are coming just, because we do this. Another humanitarian thing is we see people who are experiencing some sort of turmoil or some sort of unrest, maybe a natural disaster like what happened in Haiti, perhaps what's going on in Nicaragua or Venezuela or Cuba, or any place where people are escaping persecution. And we allow you to stay until whatever it is that's causing the turmoil, the regime change, the weather gets better, the country gets more stable, you can go back. So we have lots of people here based on that. And it's so interesting because Donald Trump, during the campaign, he was talking about all these different countries of people that reside in the United States. It's like, you idiot, you are in a nation built on immigrants. Your freaking mother was an immigrant, your grandparents are immigrants, all your children are half immigrant. Why are you so anti-immigrant? We know why. So so we allow people to come here from different nations, and there are lots of those folks. And so again, similar to Adrian Gil Rojas, who was here lawfully, Kilmar did not get his asylum application granted. However, an immigration judge said that he does have a notable claim of being persecuted if he were to return to El Salvador, and said he should not be returned to El Salvador. He was given a work permit, and he had lived here since then. He eventually got married to a woman. They had kids. He has 2 stepchildren. There was a couple of domestic things, and so that's why you hear people calling him the wife beater. But he got anger management. They worked things out. That's not why you deport people. I mean, yeah. So they admitted it. They said we weren't supposed to deport him. But again, like I said, speed. They're quickly moving people out of the country. So the folks who actually are lawfully here, like folks who under temporary protective status, or folks like Kilmar who had an order not to be deported. And there's a few others. There was a person I was talking about, Christian, who was a young kid who was part of a class action. Those folks got swept under because they were moving so freaking fast. And that's why Judge Russell III said, don't move so fast. Give people 3 days. Give people time in their language. Be sane, be humane. Yeah, so that's the reason why they're doing it really super fast. And I have a case to share with you, another case that got dropped. But here's the thing, whack-a-mole. So Kilmar, they're coming after them hard. There's a couple from my area, Caesar and Noria. And this case is going to show you to the extent to which they have no evidence. They make up stuff. They play up that they caught you to the media, to the MAGA base. And this case is also an example of, the TPS status, the people who are part of the catch and release program that they're going after, or the temporary protective status that they're trying to revoke. And this is also an example of just whack-a-mole, crazy. So this couple, I believe they came across the border, put themselves up for asylum. They got TPS status because they're from Venezuela. Tell me why the Trump administration arrested them in D.C. earlier this year, and said that the wife, because back in Venezuela, she was once married to this gang member for the town, Aguas, trained Agua, and he died, and she since moved on with her life, got married, got the TPS, came to the United States, living quietly. And they arrested her and said she's a senior gang member. She's like, what the what? The judge was like, what? Okay. We're going to let them go. You can't detain them. We'll let them have their due process and present evidence to show that she's not a senior gang member. They left. The very next day, whack-a-mole came back and arrested them in front of their children, this time in Maryland. They got a judge in Virginia. The judge in Virginia was like, if this was a criminal case, I would throw you out of my court. You're telling me this is the evidence you have against this woman, that she was married long ago to somebody who's dead? Okay, none. Go along. They're released. They go to Texas to visit some family and friends. They get on a plane. The third time, whack-a-mole. They arrest this couple. The judge, when they arrest them, ICE detention, tweets on X, we got the famous Las Hacienda. I forget what it's called. I'm going to put the name of it here. I can't pronounce it. She's the lady of the... Why are they tweeting this out with no evidence? Just defaming this woman. And the third time, the judge was like, this is the evidence you have? All right, you can go. So those people are home. So like Kilmar, those folks are subject to bogus It was like somebody said they saw him part of a clique. That's the evidence. That's what he was denied his due process rights based on somebody who said something to this guy who was a cop, who was a crooked cop, who's got kicked out the force, and that was what they said made him subject to being removed from the country. And he was wearing a Chicago Bulls jacket. And real side note, all you podcasters, all you people, Christy Nome, Trisha McLaughlin, who I loathe, who's saying he's a violent gang member, he's an MS-13, he's not going to come here, he's a monster, all those things you're calling him. He has a nice, credible defamation case that he can make against you. Why? Because when he went to CCOT, he got an expert, a guard who is actually, his job is to oversee gang members. He said, Kilmar said that when he checked in, they took all the people who were gang members and put them in one cell because they're dangerous, and they wanted to separate the non-gang members. Kilmar was among the non-gang members. He said the chief guard looked at all his tattoos and says, no, you're good. Who do you trust? The chief guard who looks at gangs, or the racist Trump administration who thinks you're a gang member if you have an autism speaks tattoo? Here's another example. There's this guy, let me tell you this guy, Pedro Luis Salazar Cuervo in Texas. They said he was Tren del Agua. What was the evidence they have that he was Tren del Agua? The man is not even from the town. He was Venezuelan, but he was from a little tiny town, had nothing to do with Aragua. Because there was a picture with him next to a man with a tattoo. How racist and stupid is that? And they didn't give him a chance to say, no, I didn't. They arrested him on a misdemeanor trespassing when he came across the border. And they kept him. And next thing you know, he's in freaking CCOT. He just for walking and having to be in the picture next to somebody with tattoos. Last month, the judge threw out that case. Actually, no. The prosecutor threw it out in the interest of justice because they knew they didn't have nothing. The prosecutor, Trump's prosecutor, was like, but it's too late. They already sent him to CCOT. So he's one of the people that's part of the class action lawsuit. There's a class action lawsuit, by the way. All those men who were sent over there are subject to this class action lawsuit. They have a lawyer that's representing their interests. So Pedro is going to be part of that. Henry Josue Velatoro Santos in Virginia. He was an alleged leader of MS-13. His charges got dropped. His deportation was delayed because, again, they had no evidence. So that's the thing. So I have already given you 5 examples of other migrants who have been allowed to go free because of lack of evidence. Similar case with Kilmar. Now, let me tell you the legal cases, examples where judges have said, why are you holding these people? You know, Mahmoud, Ramisa, Ozturk, all of the international students, they got let go because the Trump administration had no basis for detaining them. For the people they pick up in immigration courts who are coming to check in, like Kilmar, he got picked up when he came in for a check-in. Again, like I said, there's already a judge, Daniel Ho, who said that you can't be picking up people from immigration courts when they coming in to do their process. Like that's like, there's 2 examples. There's a woman named Salam Maklad, who's Syrian. She crossed the border. Again, she fits into that pattern. Like I said, I cracked the code. And she was catch and release. They said, come back. She's checking in regularly. Over the course from 2022, I think, or 23 to now, she's been checking in regularly. She found herself a little sweetie, a fellow asylum seeker, but this guy's been granted asylum. So she's going to adjust status based on being married to him eventually at some point, even though she's still an asylum seeker. Checking in, they wrestle her and throw her in jail. The hell? Then there's this other one. Actually, look at here. I'm going to post a picture of him. He had an actual AP like picture of the week because they arrested him in immigration court. Carlos Lopez Benitez. Similarly, he came in, walked in, across the border, I believe, from Paraguay, seeking asylum. He was staying with his sister, an honest member of the community, going to church. He just comes in for his regular check-in. They arrest him. In both cases, the judges reviewing them was like, listen here. They were given advance parole. Advance parole is like when you come in for asylum or check-in, they give you a number, a work permit, and say, go about your business, but come and check in. And they determined the reason why we gave you advance parole versus saying detain you until your case is looked at and said you can go free is because they already determined these people are not a threat. So if there's a discretion to determine and give them free to say not a threat, why are you rearresting them and putting them in detention? It does not make sense. What's the basis? And in both cases, they didn't have any. So the judges were like, in both cases, were like, let these people go. And in one case, I think it was Asylum, they were like, do not arrest them again. The reason why they had to specifically say don't arrest this person again is because they know the minute they turn it back, they'll do like what they did to Caesar and Norelia, is kept rearresting them over and over again. What have they done to Kilmar and rearrest them? Like, you don't have the basis to detain these people. What is your basis for holding these folks? There's none. The threat you say does not exist. The Tennessee thing is bogus and bullshit, and that's going to get tossed out. The basis for denying this due process, and I'm going to address this person right here. I'm putting a comment that I got on my YouTube channel. This person said that Kilmar came over illegal, and we talked about this in my video already. If you're watching this part of the full video, it's like, you can come to the United States, you can walk to the United States and present yourself to Border and Customs and claim asylum. A lot of times in our history, that's how people get asylum. So they come illegally. The minute you get a piece of paper and they say come back and they give you a work permit, you're not documented. You're not through the process. You're no longer illegal because you are documented. You're going through the process. You are documented. And he also said that the United States has the right to deport who they want to, which is true. Like I said, due process is afforded to every single person. Before they take away your life, liberty, or property, liberty in this case, remove you to the country and send you back, you have the right to defend yourself against any allegations. So they can remove people, but they have to give people the process and give people the right to defend themselves. As I said in this video, if you're watching this part of a whole video, if you're not just watching this segment, I said in the previous video that the way they have been deporting people is they've been taking people who've been coming to regular check-ins pursuant to being given a document and a court date, who are part of the process, and just be deporting them quickly without giving them the opportunity to know what they're being charged with and the opportunity to present evidence to say, listen, I'm not a gang member. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know the guy who was on the picture with. Why are you doing these things? Normally, in normal circumstances, not in this bizarro timeline we're living in, Department of Justice is a respected institution. Before they indict you, they have built up a record based on evidence, facts, stats, interviews, surveillance. They are trying to prosecute on the thinnest of evidence, of the most flimsiest of things, and that's why they keep getting kicked out. The LA prosecutor couldn't prosecute not one protester because it was just bullshit. In DC, they're arresting people for having an open can of liquor, taking a picture of them and posting them on X. Again, like I said, the purpose of it is just to feed their ravenous base. That's it. And yeah, so there's no reason. And similarly, in Kilmar's case, the person also said, well, he's got due process through Tennessee. Here's the thing. Every single time the government attempts to remove you, you get a fresh new opportunity to defend yourself. So when he first came into the United States and he had due process before being removed, he went through the immigration process. The end of that was like he get to stay. When they removed him, denied him due process to CCOT, despite the order, that was a violation of due process. That's his second case. He said that United States Supreme Court by 9-0 said this man should be returned. The Supreme Court, a 9-0 decision, said everyone who they're going to try to remove should be entitled to defend themselves. So this is a third case that Kilmar filed based on them trying to remove him to Uganda. What's the evidence? The Tennessee thing is trumped up charges. So the Tennessee case is bunched up and people are saying, well, he rejected that plea, as he should. Here, let me tell you something. I don't know you, but let's say I told an officer that you robbed me. You don't know me. You never seen me before. And the officer is like, where's the basis from? I said, someone said they saw him coming out my house and it was you. And the officer goes and says, okay, listen here. I'm going to throw you in jail based on this woman testimony and these people. And you get 50 years in jail, or you can accept the plea and just take 1 year in jail. Meanwhile, you don't know me. You've never been there. You have an alibi. That wasn't you. It was a mistaken identity. You would take the 1 year plea deal? No. So, of course, he's not going to take that stupid Costa Rica deal because the government has no case whatsoever. They have a flimsy case. It got tossed out. Judge Holmes, the magistrate, tossed it out. Judge Crenshaw said, okay, not tossed it out. They just said, okay, allow Kilmar to release on bond because they saw the evidence that the government presented. And she was like, it's 3 of the 4 people are the same members of the same family. They all have incentive to lie. They're all criminals. One of them they had to pull out of jail. One of them is an actual trafficker. The other one has been deported multiple times. When you talk about credibility witness, none of these people have credibility. So you have non-credible witnesses. You've had 8 years to prove he was a member of MS-13 gang. Kilmar himself have evidence from a senior guard in CCOT that said those aren't gang tattoos. You have nothing. You've proved nothing. And you're never going to be able to prove anything because this whole thing is just bullshit and vindictive. You just feel bad because everyone's like, nah. You say he's going to come back, he come back. So they're like, okay, it's malicious prosecution. So that's why Kilmar is trying to get it tossed out. And I was listening to an expert, a trial attorney, who said that that's a hard thing to get, malicious prosecution. But every single time Pam Bondi and Trish McLaughlin and Chrissy Nome said, he's a monster, they're just feeding the case, and that's another thing I always tell you, that they pop off in social media and the Department of Justice attorneys are saying 2 different things. I'm going to do a video on that later on, examples of where there's inconsistency, and that's why they get tossed out, because they can't help but yap. And also proves my case that they're yapping because a lot of stuff is for their MAGA base. That's why when they arrested Naralia, they were like, we got the ice queen, that's it. It's all for me. That's all Donald Trump is. He's a master manipulator. He filed a lawsuit against Michael Cohen. And right before he was supposed to testify, he pulled it. But he didn't need the win. He just needed the headlines. So he filed the lawsuit. That's all he's about. He's just about showing up. But not really trying to win because they don't have a case. And they don't have a case because Kilmar, and they're going to lose. So anyway, so that's my video. I hope you liked it. Share this video, comment below, let's talk. If you watch this on YouTube, there'll be other videos around you that you can watch. Get more from me. JJ Legal, each one teach one. Check out jjlegal.com. Bye-bye.